Want to get started? 6:31. Okay. All right, so we're going to cover two movements this evening. They're a little shorter. The way I've chopped this up is if I could go back and we had 2 hours, which is too much time, I might do last week's Domine Iesus Christe and the Sanctus together, because I'm getting a feeling, looking more closely at the Requiem, that there are these kind of paired movements that are kind of pleas on earth, and then there's kind of visions of heaven. It kind of goes back and forth like this. So I kind of think of last week's the Iesus Christe coming before the throne of Jesus, and then the Sanctus is kind of a pair. But anyway, let's just jump in just to remind you that so he deleted those movements, and we did the offertory last week, Domine Iesus Christe, and we're moving on to the Sanctus. You know this text because we sing it every Sunday. Sing it every Sunday in English. So I'll let you give you a minute to look through the Latin, which, by the way, if you've studied, anyone studied Latin in here? Yeah. So it's not classical Latin. We choristers and singers use what's called ecclesiastical Latin. So it's basically Italianate pronunciation of Latin. Anyway, the Latin Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth. I kind of want to get these sounds in our ears. I know some of you know these texts, but actually I just want you to echo this back to me. So we're going to jump into the Latin. So just repeat. I'll say that. Just repeat after me. Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus. Sanctified, to make holy. A lot of these are English words. Dominus Deus.
Dominus Deus.
Lord God of hosts. Sabaoth. And then full are the heavens, plenitude or plenary session. Full are the heavens and earth of your glory. So pleni sunt celi et terra gloria tua. Hosanna in the highest. So Hosanna in excelsis. Excelsis, like the heavens, the heights. All right, and then in this text, so blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So the first word is blessed, benedictus. Benediction, to be blessed. In other words, qui venit, who comes, in nomine, Domini. Hosanna. Shall see, so let me repeat that again. Okay. So, Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus. I want you to see a video of Berlin Philharmonic. We watched it before. There are no subtitles, so just kind of listen to the sounds. Oops. Too far there. Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth. Pleni sunt celi et terra gloria tua. Hosanna in excelsis. All right, let's just jump in. How many of you know this movement? A few of you are singing it, but anyone else kind of know this? First, I will watch the sound system here. Here we go. something, isn't it? Ooh, that'll be the one everyone remembers. Goes home and talks about. And this altos will go home and say, I think I've strained something. Right? It is about as high as most scorches can say. So, by the way, incidentally, for a while, and this is kind of like just word of mouth. When I bought my stereo system in 1986, going to college, they used this recording to demonstrate the sound system, and that was a thing in Northeastern Ohio. They used it was Robert Shaw's recording of that song to say, like, this is what the speakers can do. So anyway, okay. I want to focus on. Actually, let you talk for a minute. I talked, and then so. Any thoughts? Any impressions? Anything anyone wants to throw out? Just kind of like surprising, detail. What anything strike you about it? I mean, obviously there was a big crescendo, but anything else? Any other thoughts? Yeah.
After the first entrance of the choir sanctus, the orchestral chord is a surprise to me, and it's a beautiful.
The very first chord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coming up.
Where it goes.
Changes to the
Approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about harmony this evening. We are. Yeah. Anything else? Anything about it surprising at all? I mean, I know the crescendo was a surprise. Let me just get this. I want to point out detail. This is kind of maybe an unusual way in, but this is how I want to frame this. It ends this way. This is, hymn of praise, the hymn of praise, right? It's probably our oldest hymn of praise. I think it was sung in the temple, like the Jewish temple. It's from Isaiah. This is how it ends. In other words, just note the kind of emotional tone it leaves us with.
Talk too much about waves, but the vision I get from that is a boat coming onto a sandy beach and just drifting on the shore.
French have that ability to evoke images. Yeah, it really does. It's like the way water might subside. Yeah, it's beautiful. What do you think the mood is there? I know this just sounds like the first off, but what would you describe the feeling in the air?
Kind of an ominous ending.
It is, isn't it?
Quiet, and yet, after lowering in and then.
Right. It switches gears back into this it is kind of an ominous sort of like a sense of mystery maybe, or let me connect it to the reading this comes from. First of all, just real quickly, sorry, I didn't mean to do this before. Show you how he structures it just so we can find our way through it in the next few minutes here. This is the whole text in English. What he does is he gives us an A-B-A. So an A music, song two, song da, 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 nice quiet women's voices, and then that's the same at the end. And in the middle, there's another hosan in the highest. And so we have an overall A-B-A full. So, okay, so that's kind of where this is going. The reading is Isaiah 6, and we hear it in this liturgical cycle on the 5th Sunday of Epiphany. And this is Isaiah's recalling of how he was called to prophesy. He says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, lofty. and the hem of his robe filled the temple. Seraphs were in attendance above him. Each had 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, the presence of the divine. With 2 they covered their feet, not walking on the ground. And with 2 they flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. By the way, Hebrew, I never studied it, and I do know this about it, has no superlatives. You can't say holy, holy, or holiest. You say it 3 times. Holy, holy, holy. He's the most holy. So anyway, the whole earth is full of his glory. The pillars on the threshold shook at the voices of those who called, and the house was filled with smoke. So really, what a vision, what an image. Kind of fear and trembling, but amidst this praise. But it is the seraphim, right? Holy, holy, holy. And I think it's what he is evoking here. It's because it's funny how the thing everything starts from a quiet, and it kind of contracts back to a quiet, as if it's some sort of like vision that comes and goes, and it's like, what was that exactly? There's a sense of mystery in the air. So there's that part of it. What I want to do is just go back to the beginning. Let's listen a little bit like we had before, and ask ourselves sort of like, how does he project, or in what ways is he projecting this text? So he has an image of this angelic hymn, angels and archangels, as we say every Sunday. So here is the opening. Let's just do some music back in our ears here. Here is the first bass section. He does mark that Hosanna off that way, which is what makes the B section so distinctive. This is all women's voices, which is a choice. All the way through the first section is only women. Angels? I mean, if I had I don't know why I think of women's voices, but I think it's a choice. It's a way to do that. They're lighter, and they're just sort of heavenly. They're up there. I think that's one choice. Anything else? What about the rhythm? I don't know.
Didn't we talk last week about when it starts not only strongly?
Yeah, so sung to is absolutely the rhythm. There's a lot going on with the rhythm. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, it's exactly. It's funny because the strings actually go on beat. The strings are to on the beat when we go sung to, and there's this long note in the middle. So instead of ba, 2, 3, strong down beat, we get and 2 and 3 and 2, like a launching kind of effect. maybe, I don't know if you have other words for it.
Breath being coming.
Sorry?
Breath, you can take a breath.
Oh yeah, it is deeply connected to breath.
Breath.
Song two. So I get a feeling like it's like there's like it is breezy. I know it sounds like silly, but there's a lot of breath. There's a lot of kind of that sailing kind of motion. Song twos. Yeah. Do you hear that? There's a part like poor violas are like work out and getting your paycheck, earning their keep because all through this they have all the way through the whole thing. So there's this kind of dynamism underneath it all, right? It's driving. It would be so different, I think, if we didn't have it. It was just song two, which, by the way, is a whole bunch of triplets. What do we want to do? In fact, there are threes all through this thing. Trinitarian threes all over the place. They sing it 3 times, as you can see it there. Each at a new pitch level, so song two, so then higher. Trinitarian symbolism for 3. The women's voices are in how many parts? 3. And not just 3, they always move as a unit. They're flying in formation, always. So we're aware of it as a 3. It's in 3 parts. There's so many little details like that. Although I have to say, the musicians in the room will know that it's not exactly 3, it's really 6 per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Is it 6 wings? Maybe a little bit too literal. I don't know. The text does say 6 wings. Anyway, okay, good. Let's see. All right. Let me, a little bit about the instrumentation. Can you hear what the basses are doing? What the basses are playing?
Well, the bassoon had a solo.
There's that, but at the very beginning.
And I can hear the timpani in the back.
Yes, they do come in. They're not at the beginning. They're at the beginning. But just listen to the very, very beginning. Yeah, what are they doing?
1 and 3.
The other point I want to hear, that's true.
Bells.
It is felt like, because I was going to mention that later. Absolutely, I totally agree. There's like a ringing quality. Yeah, they're plucking. So it sounds like timpani, especially with these speakers really emphasizing it. They're plucking. Song two, which partly goes to the launching of the song two. It's all light on its feet. And it's actually, there's a lot going on. This is very typical of Duruflé, and then I mentioned Claude Debussy, this French school, this fine attention to detail, color, and texture. I'm going to show you really quickly the score. There's our violist. One thing he does is to lighten the bass so that it's more about the middle and upper range kind of launching forth. He divides the cellos into 2 parts, so only half of the cellos are actually going bowing. And he tells them, arco means play with the bow, with the arch, arco, and sourdine, that means muted. So they take a little, not really a device, but it's a wooden plastic piece that they put on the bridge of the instrument. I'll show you in a minute. And it quiets the instrument and gives it more of a pastel color. So it's a more subtle sound underneath there. And then the other half are just plucking with the basses. That's what pizz means, pizzicato. So what you get is this just a little bit of bass, but a lot of it is just this pluck and this resonance down there that again allows the. Now they pluck up toward. practice mute, which makes it really quiet. No mute. So that's what the cello should sound like. So these are all muted. Take the mute off again. You'll hear it. Color to the sound underneath there. So, yeah. So, okay. All right, so they're intoning the songs at 3 levels here. Let me point out something about the harmony, and I think a lot of this, the orchestration has to do about creating a sense of movement. The triplets and sextuplets create a sense of movement and fluttering and just, and then the way the bass is being played also kind of takes some of the weight off the bass. And then the harmony is really unusual. I have sat and thought about this harmony. I don't know what it is. Maybe I've looked it up. I read someone's dissertation on this thing. It's kind of like in 3 keys at once, which may be deliberately like layering 3, polytonality. The women are basically in F. I could play this in F major. It'd be awful, but which is probably what makes the big D major so suddenly satisfying, like we've suddenly arrived somewhere. And that's in fact what's happening all 3 times. This motion, song two, do, mi, sa, all and we kind of arrive, and then there's a new traveling, 3 times. But this wonderful, kind of billowy sense of I think it's sailing around, I think is what he's after. Okay. All right. So, you getting sick of hearing this yet? let's hear that with that in mind. Follow the harmony. Here. Turn it way down, of course. And an app tells you what all the apps are at. Now it would be $1 million. This is how much musicians think about harmony. Think about it all the time, because it's so hard. It's one of the most elusive aspects of music, and Mike spent 4 semesters, then more at the graduate level. I spent 4 semesters as an undergrad at the master's degree level and the doctoral level. I'm still learning. This is Bach's obituary, in which his sons, who wrote this, it was actually a necrology, in other words, a kind of article about his life, said, he even schon das Herz gehabt, he had the courage, the heart, die übermäßige Sechste, the augmented sixth to use. He said he used augmented sixth chords. It is necrology. And that's what's happening in this piece. It's a particular kind of chord. I'm not going to focus on it, but that's how much he used augmented sixth chords, people. It is a little essay on his life. Moves on. So the altos give us a D, which keeps pieces in. What happens is, right when they come in, the bottom, the floor kind of drops. And this note is now the middle. This triad, this 3 note, slips down here. So it already feels like it's like we're shifting gears. But he wants there to be this motion, so he doesn't actually just play that note. Normally you would play that note down here. Nice and firm, right? Right? Instead, he plays the middle and top notes in the bass. So in other words, instead of this note, he adds one, which I think is bell-like. So he goes, there's 6 by the way. Understand what happens next here. I'm going to do this. This is all the keys of music that we use in the West. They're all of them, okay? The white keys on the piano are this, the C's in the middle. Don't have to get too technical. But you add flats and add flats and add flats, or add sharps and add sharps, in order to keep the pattern the same. So I can play on the white keys. If I want to play in another key than C, I have to alter some of the notes, or the pattern's not the same. I don't get the right scale. That's basically what's going on. But here's the point I want to make about it. If I have a piece, say, here's a little extra piece. It's in G, okay? So there's this sharp that tells our ears we're in G. If I want to go to a new key, and this is where the Duruflé comes in, for 300 years, the way you did it is you went 1 step to the left or right, add a sharp, or remove one, add a flat, or remove one. Because our sense of where we are harmonically, which is to say spatially as well, is turned by that key. It is amazing how much that affects our feeling of what's going on in the music. And you don't want to push too far off that path, because the audience will feel it. You push too far, and it just feels disjointed. So here's an example from Mozart that you will probably recognize. What he's going to do is he's going to move to D major, just one key over. So he's going to throw that happens to be a C sharp. It's here. Okay. He's going to go from G to, that's a D, to D major. It sounds, it's not the very beginning of this. I've heard it. Anyway. Not admitting he does this, so. It's a G. Duruflé is doing is he's composed he jumps way over here to this. No transition. Isn't it amazing how I feel like it's like something opening up? Because we have such a strong spatial orientation. There's no transition. As we see, we're on this hill, we're going to get over that hill, we walk over that hill with the C sharp. This is like, we end up 4 hills, 4 mountain ranges the other, right? You know? It's like it crosses all in film. So now he's in, and then suddenly skips over to C. Which goes with crescendo and all builds up to that big moment. And what's really wonderful is the pedal, the bass, increasingly is getting more and more. It's getting bigger and louder and more with more motion. Let me try this again, folks. I need to play this so you can hear the bass.
Isn't that the point?
Exactly.
Many soon shall be there.
You're right, like the whole,
over here,
yeah,
over there,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, choirs.
and over there, and then all.
Absolutely. Also, the image is like the whole earth in heaven, like singing, right? Is it choirs from all over, like all joining in. Yeah, I like that. I like that. There is a chord in here that is one of my favorite. He could have written this. So if he's writing in action, he could have written 95% of Western music uses those two chords. This is a good example of how both French composers and jazz composers were listening to Debussy, especially. This is the chord. It is not. It is. Which is the jazz chord. I couldn't go that direction with it. It's the same chord. Why? Color and tension and just fullness. There's just. What jazz does is it takes those 3 notes of 400 years of Western harmony and it extends it and it extends it again. And that's the chord. It's called a dominant ninth. There's just something about that harmony. It's just it's rapturous, you know. So, all right, okay, we've got the apex, the highest note in this, and then we're going to come back down. It's as if it contracts back and gets quieter and quieter, and back to the C's. Let me turn it down. Back to the zone 2, so I have to find where I am. Any other comments? Anyone else want to be talking about? Okay. All right, so we're coming up to the. Oh, I don't hear. Oh, sorry, that was more detail. When we get to this, finally the bass is under the bottom of the chord. It's here, but it's going. restoring the harmony, so it's big, but it's still doing double P, 3 notes. It's hard to hear the recording, but. Because I do think there's something interesting possibly about what he's after here, and that is that we enter into a sanctuary, with the introit, and then we sing Kyrie. We saw that at the very beginning. But you might remember that the introit begins very similar. In other words, there's our violas. Composers did this all the way back to Beethoven, finding ways to link movements in meaningful ways. Sometimes it's transformations. Sometimes it's, I saw the Mahler Second Symphony in Cleveland last weekend. Sometimes it's about transcendence. So I wonder if also he's thinking in terms of turning kind of darker, mournful beginning to this holy Trinitarian flight. In the Sanctus, which is right at the center of the piece, by the way. So it's like a pillar, kind of in a way, right at the center of the piece. So, okay, just a little bit of time left here. All right, anything quickly before we move on to the next movement? Okay, just in terms of how he shapes this Requiem, the Pie Jesu is not a typical movement in the Requiem by itself, except for one other French composer who wrote a famous, widely performed Requiem, Gabriel Fauré, also has a Pie Jesu. There's a lot of influence from from Fauré, who is late 1900s or late 1800s. So what he does, the Pie Jesu comes from the last few phrases of the Dies Irae. It's a long text about the apocalypse. Real fear and trembling. But the last two phrases of the Pie Jesu he inserts here after the Sanctus. And the text is very, very simple. It's a prayer to Jesus, Pie Jesu, Domine, merciful Jesus, or beloved. There are different ways to translate Pie. It means like beloved, really, but also merciful. Dona eis requiem, give the rest. And then it's the same exact text, but sempiternum, give the rest eternal. Pie Jesu, Domine, Dona eis requiem. That's all there is to the text. It is another solo movement, and so I just want to start by just listening to it. Okay, so it's for alto, that's a soprano, as they call them sometimes. If they're operatic voices, and orchestra. So here it is. far as solos in literature.
It's pretty emotional, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, it is. It really is. You can't ask the congregation to go quite to the extent, we can't do that every Sunday. But in the choir, you do this. Prepare to get singers. The choir, the women are singing this, aren't they? That's tough. But many conductors will do it that way because it's I shouldn't say it's almost unsingable. It's just that the phrases are so long, and you singers will hear her taking breaths where you normally not take a breath. You don't really go, "Oh, nice requiem," "Send me," you don't do that ever. But there's another way to sing it. So you have the choir do it, and they can stagger breathe and no breath at all. It's just endlessly long phrases, which is itself a choice, right? It's not an accident. He chooses to write these extremely long note values and these phrases that just go on and on and on and drive you to the end of your breath. One wonders, why would you do this to singers? And I think and there's different ways to interpret it. I think if I were working with a group, I might say something like, there's some music that drives you that's trying to capture something about human experience where you're driven to all the way to the last part of your breath, which is what weeping is like, really think about it. It's long breathed and just like breaking the airframe. That's kind of what this is like. It's one way to look at it, but I'm going to go to a recording with women singing and the chorus singing it. I'll walk through this a little bit, just a little bit of time I have left. It's such a beautiful movement. For me, it's almost like, don't talk about it. It's too beautiful, it's too sorrowful, it's just too emotionally accurate, to sit and pick it apart, pull it apart, like, what's T.S. Eliot, like a patient etherized up on the table, but let's try to talk a little bit about some of these beautiful details. I'll just leave the text up there. He opens like this, with just this, 2 notes. And then the voice comes in with the just skimming for organ. I want to ask you about that. I know it's kind of crazy, like when he's going to ask us about one note, but just because the frame is important, where it places us. Okay, like there's a focus, like a meditative quality. Yeah, right. And it's not it's not rhythmic, is it either? It's just.
This is not a toe tap.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is like the opposite. It's the opposite of Hosanna. We kind of want to join. We tap our foot. We want to join in. Yeah, absolutely. That's not.
You don't know where he's going with it either. With those 2 notes,
right.
He's just done it in the introit. He's just done it in the one before the Sanctus.
Yeah.
And now we've got that, and it could be which could be the minor. Yes.
Or it could be major, which is what this is here.
Yes.
Those 2 notes can flip either way. So there's like it's like an opening. You don't know what's going to be next. So there's like it's very solitary too, isn't it? This is a very, very solitary, which I think is one argument for having a soloist, but then of course the poor alto has to, it's so hard. Who can sing that delicately enough, really, But anyway, it's very, very, there's perfect silence surrounding it, I think. And so gentle, just the most gentle dissonances here. Anyway, bittersweet. You know, and I think all of this is one of these movements that is so many-sided for an experience that would be so many-sided. In a piece about remembering those, whose memory what's the phrase? Whose memory we recall today. And so a prayer, a plea, it's hopeful, it's a plea to give them rest, but it's so full of all of those mixed emotions, I think, too. And he's going to use harmony as one of the ways he will use to kind of, it's like major and minor at the same time, constantly, each kind of playing its part here in this mix. Back to minor. Just a little bit about, this one note, and then beautiful jazz. That's a jazz move. You notice it's a colorful harmony. Just a little. That's about as saccharine as he allows himself to get. Just a little bit of sweetness right there. Just a little. It's perfect. It's gentle, but in other words, it may be to your point that it's like there's the center, the voice is at the center, and there's things moving around it, but the voice stays right in that center place. It's a peaceful place. It's another, anything else? That's probably the best way to put it. It can be many-sided. I noticed the way he lets this down is so gradual. And I think that's part of it. There's this one note that there are these harmonies moving around it, but they're so deliberate, so deliberate. Singers don't want to let go of that note, hang on to it. I also think too that singers know this, but like soloists will often ask themselves, like, what's my motivation? Just like an actor would. And so imagining, hanging on to a prayer, hope is another way that a singer might think about why these notes are long, and there's there's 4 notes, another 2, not just counting them out, but there's a reason. It always sounds just like good acting. You can tell when it's motivating. It sounds like the singers have to sing it that way. There's no other way they can sing it. The notes come out that long. They just do. I think, and this is very personal, we all have different, too, for me, it's very much, if this is music about kind of letting go, which I think is tied into the end there as well, kind of come to terms with that kind of things. So I don't know, there's any other observations about this? It's nice on strings. It works really well on organ. It's hard on piano. In other words, this is an organist thinking about the way sonorities would sound when they're perfectly in tune. There's no variation in pitch, and you can play these harmonies way down here. You hear them on the piano. They almost start not working. On organ, though, with the strength, there's just enough purity to harmony that it works. Okay. All right. Any other comments about this? How are you singing this? How's it going so far? Tough. You really have to support that tone, huh? Sorry.
There's work.
Yeah.
I don't even get us to sing this song.
What's it? Bring the third along and all of your more support.
I mean, it's challenging when you all sing it. It's from the first time they sang it, it was an absolute emotional roller coaster.
Oh, was it really? Yeah.
I mean, hearing those voices push themselves to places that they aren't used to going,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which is what we do.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And you live through this.
Yeah. I was playing Beethoven once, and I was having trouble with the passage. I was like, but it's awkward. And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Dave, all Beethoven is awkward. And it's supposed to be. The struggle to get it to happen is part of the music. And it's part of it. And Robert Shaw said that his choruses, once they're doing the Beethoven 9th Symphony, has anyone sung Beethoven 9 here? Oh gosh. Yeah, he said, you have to support the tone. If you don't, you'll bleed.
There's 16 bars of high A.
Yeah.
16. That's the one I know how.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Thank you for that work.
As a listener, I think this conversation is interesting to me because to make this happen is such hard work vocally.
Yeah.
And you're singing about eternal rest.
Yeah.
It's a complete opposite of what you're
It is.
putting out there. What's received is just this wonderful.
It's cathartic, isn't it? And I think that's part of what I'm hearing at the end is, and I think that for me the strings that it's dark, but it's almost like a heaving. It's like it's the way you breathe after, right? There's the peace at the end, but it's also about like just what we're pleading for, the plea, all of it, the whole like plea to understand, come to terms with death, and what it means and how to get through it and all of this. I mean, it's all wrapped up in this just pure sound, whether you elect or not. You know, I think if the women are doing their job, and they usually do, you know, you hear, you know, just that outpouring, release. For me, my voice would crack, and there would be no outpouring. It would just be, oh my gosh, someone help Dave. Anyway, all right. Anything else? Thanks for your comments, folks. I appreciate it.
Wish I had you and I took music appreciation.